Hi, welcome to the next episode of the Indie Music Network podcast presented by Not Dead Media.
Sorry, redo that. Not Dead Media.
Not dead yet.
Did I say not?
The
You asked me if I
Music
was ready
Network.
and I said no.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
So now I'm going to not do it by heart. So do you have a library?
That was my next question. I was saying, let's rewind.
Go ahead,
How do you find? No, I just wanted to make sure we're not leaving some information that we are just assuming that people know. Yeah. Like, yes, you're a music house, but then you also had said like you'll send like me a brief, for example, if it's like an indie pop thing or whatever. How do you find music? Do you have artists that are signed to you for sync? How, like, yes, you can do original music. I know a lot of times, though, people kind of consider that to be publishing also. Like, I guess kind of give me that world about how do you find music? Who are these artists?
Yeah. So, like, how do I find music specifically for, like, supervision briefs or?
Yeah, or, like, in general. Like, do you have like 100 artists signed and you start with their music first, and then if that doesn't work, then you send the brief out? Like, how are people signed with you? How does that work?
So that's an interesting question, and it varies, I think, person to person, because it depends on the situation. So, for example, the Music Playground and another competitor music house called So Stereo, they both have huge like indie catalogs, and I don't mean indie as in genre, I mean like up and coming one-stop clearance type of tracks. And so if somebody's sending them a brief, it's generally because they're asking them to search within their in-house catalog of bands and artists, right, which is anywhere from like, probably up, like Music Playground had upwards of like 600 artists in their catalog, which is a pretty big catalog. So in that case, if somebody's sending you a brief, they're generally asking you to look through your catalog. Mm-hmm. In my case now at Duotone, we don't have a band and artist catalog. So if they're sending us a brief and they're like, we want to do a music supervision search, I know that they're asking me to do my due diligence and reach out to all my contacts at labels and publishers and other music houses, and whatever catalogs I know and or artists I know exist and are available for licensing, reach out far and wide and find the track that fits my brief.
Is there a process of which I need to get a song that's currently done? So I'm reaching out to labels and publishers and just what you talked about, or I need to get something specifically written. Is that part of a brief, or do you go, it's better if I had something specifically written either what's the degree? Is it, because I don't think you do both at the same time. One could be more one to the other, or you go, no, actually, I've got a week. So if someone could send me a demo of a song, that would work.
So generally speaking, the teams that we're working with have some semblance of an idea of what they want. We worked on a project for a shoe brand recently, and it was very Margaret Qualley, Kenzo World. I don't know if you know that commercial, but just like someone kind of dancing obscurely through this shoe department and like trying on different shoes, and every shoe was a different persona of this woman like dancing through. It was very, very cool concept. And they had small budget, very specific track. They were looking for like potentially working with an up and coming band and artist, giving them a cool opportunity via this commercial. And so that's pretty specific, right? Like they know they want a band and artist. We're going to try to find someone up and coming that they love, that there could maybe be some sort of cool brand tie-in. So that's like, okay, we want to work with a band. Sometimes people come to us and they're like, this is an original music project. We want a bespoke score. So we know we're doing original music demos. Sometimes they come to us and they already know what track they want. They'll be like, we love this Billie Eilish track and we just want you to handle the clearance for us. And maybe, arrange it to picture for us a little bit.
Right.
So those are just like 3 examples. So usually when they come to us, they know they want to do a band and artist track, or they know, I would say they know they want to do catalog, right? Or they know that we're doing an original music project. They want a fully custom bespoke score. or we're doing an original arrangement. So they're like, we love this song. We know we can't afford to license the publishing and the master of this really famous song. So we'll license the publishing. We want you to recreate the master.
Right.
Sometimes we're exploring a few different avenues because they're trying to convince the client to give them more money so they can afford a more expensive track, or B, they want to know what it would be to license this track. And if they know they can't afford it full up, then we'll go the original arrangement route. The weirdest thing, and I've seen this multiple times in the past 2 months, which is why I made a face when you said that, is that we've seen a couple of clients that aren't sure creatively which direction they want to go, and they have healthy budgets, which is unheard of these days. And so we have quite literally done like huge band and artist catalog pulls from everything from the majors to the minors. We've done original music demos and we've done original covers. So we sent multiple full packages to our clients in the past 2 months. I've only been at Duotone for 2 months, where it was literally a full package. It was all of those things as they explored what they felt was the best for the content. So sometimes you are exploring multiple avenues at the same time. It's rare, I would say, just based on, all the previous stuff I've done, but I'm weirdly seeing it more frequently, where we're doing really full packages of everything, which is like, a little chaotic, but if you're paying us to do the search and to do the demos and to do this, then let's go.
Well, you're educating the client too, right? Like, so for hopefully future projects, they may have a sense of the cost of each path. Yeah. And maybe it will be a little more streamlined for a future project. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
I wish things were more streamlined. That doesn't seem to exist.
I was an account executive, so yeah, I know, and a media planner. So it's like you can do, you can design the most efficient, complementary plan, and then a client will cross out what they want.
Not everybody thinks this. They just think you'll be able to get them this kind of artist in this song with this budget.
Are there any things that have been more syncable recently? Like, is there any? Obviously, an artist isn't usually going to make a song for sync. Like, you're not going to just write it for that if it's also going to be on your EP or whatever. But like, are there any trends, anything going on right now that artists should be aware of or have on the radar?
Yeah, I actually have a lot to say about that. I think the trend that I'm seeing the most right now is Birdman, which is like that percussion drum pattern because of the show, The Studio. So you're seeing a lot like, right, happening. And so that I've seen that reference multiple times, The Studio specific, and I think it was in another show recently that it came in hot. So that's something that's trending right now. What you'll see a lot of in terms of trending is stuff that happens in like a film or some sort of pop culture moment that then gets trickled down to advertising, or the reverse, right? You'll see something in an ad that then gets trickled down to the rest of culture. So there's a lot of like, culture moments happening between these pieces of content, which is really cool. And then, it's interesting. Some artists do write specifically for sync. And there's actually a lot of artists that do that. Some artists consider themselves sync artists, and then they have like their artist project, and then they're writing tracks specifically with licensing in mind. And that is a different way to write. It's a different way to approach music. It's a different way to think about music. And it depends on what you're writing for. And I say that because the way you're going to write and record music for trailers is not the same way you're going to write and record music for a toothpaste commercial.
Right.
Right.
So there's many different ways to look at it.
And are those artists just using the very like keywords of either like I'm in love or like
totally
this was so dark, like what, like it's the classic Love Island, I always think, like vibe where it's like they're literally singing to exactly what is going on.
I wonder what show Heather watched.
Yeah, I wonder what she binged last night.
To be fair, To be fair, I did not watch the season of Love Island, but any of the reality shows, it's very much like...
I have no idea what we're talking about, but
I am so glad I don't. Right.
Yeah.
Reality shows, it'll be like where two people are off in the corner making out, and it'll be like, I love kissing my man because he's sexy. Like, that's the whole song, and you're like, what? Am I wrong?
That is a specific artist writing. Yes, I would.
It's just funny. Like if we're going like trailerized stuff, it's like buzzwords are like epic, cinematic.
Right.
If we're going for what you're talking about, like hooky, loopy a little bit, like things that are earwormy, that are going to get stuck in your head, like those are maybe buzzwords you'd hear. You're definitely going to get more in the vein of pop for like a Love Island, or we did a lot of work with Selling Sunset at the music theater.
Yes.
Themes are important. If you're swearing a lot, or you're, singing really sad, depressing music, like that's likely not going to license as much,
or very narrow, right?
And you're writing about friendship, and you're writing about things that I would consider kind of cheeky, or cheesy, that you're more likely to probably get a sync, like the singer songwriter, man on a guitar is like
classic.
Always going to be a classic sync thing.
Noah Khan has entered the chat.
But on the other side, of Love Island, I know you're doing this less, but you've done it, and I've done it on music supervision, working with film or TV. So when they're doing Peaky Blinders and they got a Nick Cave or PJ Harvey, or when the Bear had specific songs in mind, they come with a vision of what they want. Many of them are very specific of what their thing is. It's a great soundtrack or inspired by soundtrack. That's a different brief then for you, right? That's a different world. I know that they rhyme, but can you talk a little bit about the difference of what that charge would be for you to be able to do?
Yeah. And I mean, well, it's a couple different things, right? So there's just like catalog pulls, which is where you're just sending a brief and then you're pulling tracks, and you can have sometimes supervisors or, directors of shows or the production team working on the show come in with artists in mind and tracks in mind. They already have the soundtrack in their head, and they just want to know if they can afford it, or if they can't afford it, sounds like X, right? And so there's like deep curation that happens there. And sometimes it's a matter, and when I say catalog pulls, I just mean songs that already exist that you're pulling and then putting to picture.
Mm-hmm.
A step beyond that would be, here's the artist we know we want to work with. Do you think they would be interested in writing for this piece of content? A good example of that is Ghost. I just wanted to see a Ghost show. They're this Swedish rock band. They're insane in the best way.
Oh, good. I thought you meant the movie.
No. Okay. And Ghosts. Check them out. I think people know their song that's like Mariana. Mariana. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. On a cross. Thank you. But anyways, if you come to a band like that, and this is something I think that's important for indie artists, wherever you put your music is going to in turn represent your brand as an artist. Right. And so like Ghost, the reason I bring them up is they've written for Insidious, and they wrote for another horror film, and that fits their brand. And they're so specific about what they say yes to. And I think that's important for indie artists, because if you're building, your project, your artist project is your brand.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that you're staying in line with your brand. And so in the beginning, it's harder to say no to things, which is totally respectful. But at a certain point, you want to make sure you're being really intentional about what you say yes to, what you're comfortable with. Protect yourself, right? From people that are going to abuse the privilege, or that are going to steer your brand as an artist into a direction that you don't want it to. So it would be catalog pull first. Sorry, I'm veering back. Catalog pull first, and then maybe writing for specific. And then I think in and outside of that, there is just full up original composition that happens for those things, where you're pulling in a composer or composition team, maybe a lead composer, and he's got his guys or whatever, to score the entire piece. And so for shows like that are very, very specific, even like White Lotus, right? Like White Lotus was working with a specific music supervisor and a specific composer.
Right.
And there was some drama there, but
yes.
My bigger point being there's layers to what we're doing. And so on the music supervision side, it starts with a conversation for TV film specifically. And then you kind of go from there. Sometimes you're tied to a network. And so if you're writing, if you're working on a show that's tied to Netflix or that's tied to Hulu or what have you, like they have specific parameters around what you're allowed to use when it comes to music and licensing and supervision. Sometimes it's a little bit more free format, which is always better because then it doesn't, what I would say, like hinder the creative or like stint you from going to where you want to go with it. But yeah, no, it's very content specific. It's very specific to what the creative direction is. And also like, unfortunately always whittles down to what's the budget.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Or you can be The Summer I Turned Pretty or We Were Liars with Amazon, and literally every 2 minutes they have one of the biggest songs in the world, and then you don't really have a budget because it's infinite.
These are very powerful things. That there are times when you go right to Spotify after you hear the opening song or something, or Bear, and you hear something and you go, or you go right to the soundtrack. I mean, Spotify is filled with all these shows soundtrack. And so with an emerging artist, like we talked about how they would, what a great way it is to go think about, hey, look, I'm available for a house to be able to do a sync deal with. But that would be different. You'd have to actually find music supervisors. And then I'm sure they're open like you are to always getting new music and looking at what's possible. But you have to kind of reach out to, those are like, they're not every of them are a company. They're individuals who do, I guess you'd find the show and look at who the music supervisor is, and then try and reach out to them and send them a link tree of something too. Like, look, this is what we're doing. We're working on. If there's anything that comes up, interested, but at least to get your name and music out. Just creating a widespread thing of opportunity, and then it's always luck is involved, but they go in.
Yeah, and I think like showing up to things is cool. So like if you show up to a Guild of Music Supervisors event and you meet a music supervisor, follow up with them, send them your music, like a warm intro and a warm outreach or like a face-to-face is always going to go a lot further than a random cold outreach. And I'm not saying don't do the cold outreach, like definitely do it.
No, this is a yes and.
Exactly. Yeah, you've got to play the game a little bit. As an indie artist. And another thing, and this kind of goes back to a couple topics ago, but it keeps coming back to the top of my mind, so I'm going to say it. Duotone worked on a project with Carter Vale, who is a social media influencer, a social media music influencer. And I just think it's important to talk about social media, even though we're in a little bit of a trying time with that. And I know algorithms are changing and some of that stuff's unfortunate. Social media in and of itself will always be a powerful, powerful, powerful tool for an artist. And what we saw specifically during the pandemic was TikTok making some people like skyrocket their careers to levels that they definitely wouldn't have gotten to without it. Right. And so utilizing your platform, especially if you're indie and you're not signed and you're not even signed with a music house for representation, can go a really long way. Carter Vale's not signed with anybody. And so he, by the power of like creative and using the platform in a smart way, has been able to land multiple commercials and brand deals via that medium. And so there is like a cultural thing happening where it's just like, use your resources. I think in certain ways it's completely unfair because now as an artist, especially an up and coming artist, you have to be a content creator. You have to be funny. You got to be witty. You got to you have to have a certain amount of followers for people to start paying attention to you. You know what I mean? Like it's
we talk about that all the time.
Totally backwards and totally unfair. But if you can get into the groove a little bit and work on that, right? It can take you a really long way. And not everybody wants that, right? Some people prefer different avenues. And that's why I think it's important to just talk about what the options are.
So you're saying people in your field also look at social media and go,
constantly.
these are top artists, or this is the music that these guys are doing, or this guy does amazing covers.
And what they'll do is they'll either go straight to the talent, or they generally need and or want a music house to manage that for them. And so they'll bring Duotone on board to then, manage, work with the artist, help do the contracts, if that person has a manager, work with their manager, that sort of thing. They usually also have in-house business teams. So we're often working between the creative and the business team and the artists themselves. But that's, it's just another way for an indie artist who wants to stay independent to get their music out.
Are they searching, or are they starting with what the kind of reach the artist has and then listening, or are they're just scrolling and they find something interesting, even if it's an up and coming artist that doesn't have the kind of numbers that you're talking about? Or are they just numbers driven and then they look at the music or the talent?
I would say like 9 times out of 10, it's like a popularity contest. It's numbers driven, right? They're looking at someone who's had a viral moment or many viral moments or is an influencer, because that person is steering culture. And so they want to grab onto that moment of culture and then tie it to their brand. Right. So that's true. And that will always be true. However, I also believe, in the true spirit of indie, that people want to find this up and coming, maybe doesn't have as many followers, type of situation. So it's a little bit of both. I would say probably like 90-10, like 90 times, 90% they're looking for somebody that already has a following and they just want to latch onto that following because you've done the work for them. But there is the 10% that are like, give me someone no one's heard of and like, let's do something crazy with them, because there's so many talented artists and producers that nobody's heard of. Right.
And it's a different way to stand out. It's a different way for a brand to stand out by doing something unexpected.
Totally. Yeah. And there's a very cultural niche to accomplishing something successfully with a not famous or a not influencer or a whatever. And sometimes that can take you even further.
Well, then it's a good thing for an artist to look and see what companies like yours or music supervisors are on any kind of social media and follow them. So that's in their base to be able to go.
So this has been so helpful and just such an interesting conversation. And I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. Just a follow-up. What advice would you give to someone who would want to get into the sync business and like do what you do? How would they start? How would they start networking? Is there anything in particular they should study? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. There are specific courses and like schools and studies that you can do where you can jump into something like this a little bit more from the get. And I mentioned a couple earlier, but like USC, Berkeley, like some of the more known music schools have music business arms or music production arms. There are also niche advertising schools that focus specifically on being a producer for advertising or being a creative for advertising that can lend themselves into music. So do your research is my biggest thing. If you are interested in going to school and doing that sort of route in terms of educating yourself on where to go, there are many, many options. So that's the first thing. Outside of that, and some people don't want to go to school, and some people just want to jump straight into the music.
Or they're out of school already, but they're realizing this may be, or a passion that they want to follow.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different avenues in terms of music supervision, and it really, and I say like, you kind of have to keep your options open when you're starting and allow yourself, to explore different things within the supervision world. And then once you get real world work and experience and understand it a little bit better, then you can start to hone in like, oh, actually, I'm most interested in this part or this part or this part. So internships are really cool, and there's a lot of companies that have internship programs. Duotone has a strong internship program, so I'm someone to reach out to for that.
Great.
Most other music houses have internships, as well as labels and pubs. And the labels and pubs are going to be a lot harder to get to. But it's always worth putting your name in the hat if you can, or applying. Applying online, I think, has become kind of scary these days because it feels like a black hole.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can reach out to somebody at the company that is the recruiting person or the hiring manager or managing director, try to get to those people instead of just applying and, twiddling your thumbs. So on that note, always apply. But I would say if you can find them on LinkedIn and shoot them a message, you should. If you can find them professionally, I wouldn't go to Instagram. That's a little more for like artist stuff. If you can find their email and you know that the job's still open, shoot them an email. It's okay to do that. Don't be annoying about it, but like one email is totally okay. And I would say internships are cool, but if you see like a coordinator position or a production assistant position or just an assistant position at all, like those are all good places to start within a music house or a management company or a label or a publisher. Those are kind of like the 4 big ones, right, to start. And it really is just like, even if you like go on Instagram and see what's happening within that world. And what I mean by that is in New York, there's something called Hang the DJ, and it's a music supervisor hang. It's just a free come to the bar and hang out, and music supervisors do a rotation. There's usually 5 soups a night that are DJing, and it's literally just a hang at a bar. And if you keep finding things like that where you can show up and meet the people that you want to meet and get FaceTime with the people that you want to get FaceTime with, that's going to go a lot further than this, like what I would call black hole internet application. And then you can follow up with them because you met them in person, and that's a warmer outreach now. So show up where they're showing up. Don't be creepy about it. But like if it's open forum hang at a bar, go to the bar. And if you don't want to go alone, like that's a scary thing. Some people are better at that than others. Bring one of your friends, and have some support there for yourself. Indie Music Week happens. Actually, Indie Music Month is June in New York City, and there's so many events. Like go to the panels, go to Sad Girl Hours, show up at the networking events that these people are showing up at, and get your foot in the door. And so you have to play the game a little bit professionally, right? You have to try to show up where these people are showing up, or show up to things and ask people questions to figure out where you might know these people are showing up. And do your due diligence, do some research online, do some research on LinkedIn, shoot over emails. Don't be afraid to do that. But the flip side of that, I'll just continue to say, like, there's a way to be forward about stuff without being annoying. So you have to find that like fair balance between reaching out and being obnoxious. Because at a certain point, they're going to block you.
They'll be turned off.
Or they'll turn you off. So it's a delicate dance.
Great tips.
Well, this was fantastic. I'm just think we should have her on every weekend.
I think so.
I know, right? My God.
There you go. That was just really special. Thank you. You were terrific first guest, and now we can't have another one.
That's right.
Now it's going to be downhill. So now I'm tearing up. So I don't really know.
So Sydney, thank you so much. This was so awesome. Where can people find you or learn more about what you do?
Yeah. So if you go to duotoneaudio.com, you can check out some of our work. And we do a lot more than just advertising. So you can check out some of the really fun stuff that we've been working on.
Awesome.
Well, that's
thank you again.
Thank you so much.
There right after this.
Yep. I'm going to apply for an internship.
What a great podcast. Thank you again to Sydney. I crushed it. She might actually have to replace you, Russ. I'm so sorry to
I've already offered.
We will all have to re-audition for our frames. Thanks for listening to the Indie Music Network podcast. If you have questions or want to send us music, you can follow us at Not Dead Yet Media or contact us at our website, notdeadyetmedia.com/contact. If you found this episode helpful, share it with an artist or industry friend. And if you want more practical, no bullshit strategies to build your music career, hit subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. The music you're hearing today is artist Tosh Wolf's song, Electric Blue. Until next time, keep making music that matters. And remember, in the words of Frank Turner, we can get better because we're not dead yet.
See ya.